Hello and welcome to 10 novels recommended by you, the list. I posted a video requesting recommendations for 10 novels to read in 2020, which you can see in the info cards above. Thank you to all those who took the time to suggest titles for me to check out. Now, here is the list of books that you have recommended me to read in 2020. I've checked out the synopsis for each novel and they all sound terrific. Joey of Game of Authors recommended one book that I already own, so although I plan to read it in 2020, it does not count for this challenge. That was How Green Was My Valley by Richard Llewellyn. I will discuss this novel when I review it later in the year. So let us move on to the new novels that were recommended. The first one on my list is Parish, Trout by Pete Dexter, recommended by Brian of Bookish. I thought Parish Trout was a French whore, so of course it immediately got my attention, but in fact Parish Trout is a white storekeeper and moneylender in the sleepy little town of Cotton Point, Georgia. So not quite as racy as I first thought. However, Parish Trout is an implacable bigot. A long time ago he studied law, but he's no respecter of it. One hot summer's day he invokes his own law with devastating results. Parish Trout, as a vile southern bigot, store owner and loan shark, often sues people, and so his lawyer, Harry Seagraves, eventually meets Parish's wife, Hannah. A former school teacher, she made the mistake of her life when she married Parish, who brutalizes her. Soon, Parish goes beyond the over-generous bounds of what a man in his position can get away with, even in the segregated South, leading to a spiral of perverse insanity. Some of the townspeople think Parish Trout a hero for what he did, others that the law should make him pay. William Staron thought that Parish Trout is a grim and fascinating novel filled with wonderfully comic touches by a writer whose brilliant understanding of the Deep South has allowed him to capture much of its essence. Its bitter class distinctions, its violence, its strangeness, a fine and engrossing work. Well, I wanted to be engrossed, so I'm hooked, even though it is not about a hooker. 2. The Only Story by Julian Barnes, recommended by Amelia of Amelia Reads. Would you rather love the more and suffer the more, or love the less and suffer the less? That is, I think, finally the only real question. First love has lifelong consequences, but Paul doesn't know anything about that at 19. At 19 he's proud of the fact his relationship flies in the face of social convention. As he grows older, the demands placed on Paul by love become far greater than he could possibly have foreseen. Tender and profound, The Only Story is an achingly beautiful novel by one of fiction's great mappers of the human heart. 3. As God Commands by Niccolo Ammaniti, recommended by Alan Braswell. From Niccolo Ammaniti comes a novel set in industrial Italy where a father and son contend with a hostile world and their own inner demons. The economically depressed village of Verano, where Cristiano Zena lives with his hard-drinking, out-of-work father Reno, is a world away from the picturesque towns of travel brochure Italy. So when Reno and his cronies come up with a plan to reverse their fortunes, Cristiano wonders if maybe their lives are poised for deliverance after all. But the plan goes horribly awry. On a night of apocalyptic weather, each person will act in a way that has irreversible consequences for themselves and others, and Cristiano will find his life changed forever and not in the way he hoped. As God Commands is a story of life at the crossroads of hope and despair. 4. Lost Illusions by Honore de Balzac, recommended by Matthew of Mayberry Bookclub. Handsome would-be poet Lucien Chardon is poor and naive, but highly ambitious. Failing to make his name in his dull provincial hometown, he's taken up by a patroness, the captivating married woman Madame de Bargeton, and prepares to forge his way in the glamorous beau monde of Paris. But Lucien has entered a world far more dangerous than he realized, as Madame de Bargeton's reputation becomes compromised and the fickle, venomous denizens of the courts and salons conspire to keep him out of their ranks. Lucien eventually learns that wherever he goes, talent counts for nothing in comparison to money, intrigue, and unscrupulousness. Lost Illusions is one of the greatest novels in the rich procession of the comedy humane, Balzac's panoramic social and moral history of his times. 5. Tara Road by Maeve Binchy, recommended by Jason of Byways in Bookland. A house swap leads to an unlikely and touching friendship, as secrets are unveiled and lives changed. Rhea and Marilyn have never met. They live thousands of miles apart, separated by the Atlantic Ocean, one in a big, warm Victorian house in Tara Road, Dublin, the other in a modern open-plan house in New England. Two more unlikely friends would be hard to find. Rhea's life revolves around her family and friends, while Marilyn's reserve is born of grief. But when each needs a place to escape to, a house exchange seems the ideal solution. Along with the borrowed houses come neighbours and friends, gossip and speculation, as Rhea and Marilyn swap lives for the summer. 6. Peace Like a River by Leif Enger, recommended by Joey of Game of Authors. Leif Enger's debut, Peace Like a River, is a richly evocative novel narrated by an asthmatic 11-year-old named Reuben Land, and is the story of Reuben's unusual family and their journey across the frozen badlands of the Dakotas in search of his fugitive older brother Davy. Charged with the murder of two locals who terrorized their family, Davy has fled, understanding that the scales of justice will not weigh in his favor. But Reuben, his father Jeremiah, a man of faith so deep he has been known to produce miracles, and Reuben's little sister Swede follow closely behind the fleeing Davy. Affecting and dynamic, Peace Like a River is at once a tragedy, a romance, and an unflagging exploration into the spirituality and magic possible in the everyday world, and in that of the world awaiting us on the other side of life. In Enger's superb debut effort, we witness a wondrous celebration of family, faith, and spirit, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long, long time, and the birth of a classic work of literature. 7. Work by Louisa May Alcott, recommended by Amy of From the Dusty Bookshelf. Before she went on to attain literary acclaim with beloved novels like Little Women, author Louisa May Alcott grew up in an environment of abject poverty, from which she had to fight to extract herself through years of back-breaking labour. This semi-autobiographical tale recounts Alcott's initiation into the world of work and what that meant as a woman in 19th century America. 8. The Plague by Albert Camus, in Stuart Gilbert's translation, recommended by Tootight Lautrec. The townspeople of Oran are in the grip of a deadly plague, which condemns its victims to a swift and horrifying death. Fear, isolation, and claustrophobia follow as they are forced into quarantine. Each person responds in their own way to the lethal disease. Some resign themselves to fate, some seek blame, and a few, like Dr. Roux, resist the terror. An immediate triumph when it was published in 1947, The Plague is in part an allegory of France's suffering under the Nazi occupation, and a story of bravery and determination against the precariousness of human existence. A matchless fable of fear, courage, and cowardice. 9. Toilers of the Sea by Victor Hugo, recommended by Matthew of Mayberry Bookclub. Toilers of the Sea tells the story of Julian, a reclusive fisherman who lives on the island of Guernsey in the Channel Islands, and who must free a ship that has run aground in order to win the hand of the woman he loves, a ship owner's daughter. When Julian became a young man, he fell in love with Déruchette, the beautiful niece of a wealthy ship owner, Lethierry. When Lethierry's steamship mysteriously runs aground, Déruchette, who is in love with the new rector of the island, offers to marry the man who can recover the Durand. Julian sets off at once to free the ship, and his feats of ingenuity and strength create some of the most memorable descriptions to be found in a romantic novel. Although the least known of Hugo's masterpieces, this deliberately grandiose tale is by turns a sympathetic, richly detailed account of the hard work of seamanship and exhilarating action, as in the remarkable battle with the octopus. This irresistible novel, written with Hugo's considerable narrative skill, is both captivating and haunting to its ironic conclusion. 10. And now for the pièce de résistance. I've reserved the 10th spot for Kelly to recommend the most amazing novel she has ever read. And now I'm going to buy, read and review one each month throughout the rest of 2020. And I'll be back soon with another BookTube video.